Hello everybody, my name is Zen and welcome back to more of our Wildstar beta coverage where we are going to be taking a look at the Dominion starting zone, what I like to call the tutorial area in the game. It starts out with the cinematic, so let's take a look at that.
I have evidence that exiles may have infiltrated our cryosystems, planting their traitorous agents among loyal Dominion citizens. I require such a citizen to aid me in my work. You will find one for me.
Yes, ma'am. Scans detect what we believe to be several functioning cryopods. No mechanical anomalies. Which one would...
That one, right there. Yes. I have an instinctive feeling about that one. And the Makari's instincts are mathematically flawless, and none more than my own.
As you say, ma'am. Reading all vitals at optimal. Shall I begin the reanimation procedure?
Yes. Begin as soon as the fail-safes are in place.
All right, we're ready to proceed. This one is definitely the best of the lot, ma'am. Peak physical condition, no sign of tampering with any of the equipment.
Exactly what I require. Yes, I detect potential in this one.
Now there's a little bit of story there that we could talk about briefly. Basically, there are exiles on the ship that are infiltrating the ship, and we need to go take them out, and the person trusts us to do so. Boom, it's that easy. There's more story that goes on here, and it is pretty cool, but we, won't get too far into it because I want you guys to kind of experience that on your own. But why do I call this a tutorial zone? Well, it's because that's what it is. You can call it the starting zone. I like to call it the tutorial zone because the game is trying to teach you the basic mechanics of how the game works, especially to people who've never played an MMO before. And to people who have, it's trying to unteach you some of the things that you may have learned as bad habits in those other games. But basically, you saw that I was clicking on the people. It was showing me that there are things to click on there. That's, if you have to interact with something for a quest, it'll have that icon. So it's just teaching you that kind of thing. Pretty simple, and it's a constant thing that it's teaching you. Like at the beginning, the little pop-ups that you had to click through, they mean nothing. It's just showing you that there may be pop-ups, and this is teaching you quest, I guess, what's the like flow kind of. I mean, you learn that more later on, but it's it's just progressing as you go. We're going to talk with the Emperor here. I do need to mention that because it is a beta, there is a bug with the audio that I will cut out briefly with it because it gets really loud suddenly, and I don't want to blow your ears out.
Greetings, loyal citizen. We have just completed a great journey across the stars, and the fulfillment of our ancient destiny is at hand. Although the Dominion is emerging from a time of darkness, I swear to you by the Elden blood in my veins that I will lead our empire into a new age of greatness on the sacred homeworld of our forefathers. Citizens like you will make this possible. Prepare yourself for the challenge to come.
So there's a lot of lore to talk about there, and I will talk about it in a future video. So, don't be too concerned with, what is actually going on in the game. It's got a pretty cool story behind it, and a lot of that is because it's an original IP, an original concept, and it's, they could do really cool things with it, basically. That's what I'll say, without spoiling anything. But, in the future, we'll go into some pretty good detail on how the story actually works. But back to why this is a tutorial area, and why I think it's the worst part of the game. It's kind of strange that, because the Exile one is fine. I don't think the Exile one has many problems, but the Dominion one feels very fractured as far as the starting area is concerned. We'll talk about that. But more tutorial stuff here as we go through this next room coming up. You see, there's things on the ground. It's teaching you. dodge the stupid crap on the ground, don't stand in the red stuff, you know. It's pretty basic, and then it gives you a little taste of the combat, but that's why it's a problem. Because it only gives you a little taste of the combat, and then you have to go do like a ton of stupid running around for 10, 15 minutes on your first playthrough of this, and it's not as fun. That's why I think that this is fractured a bit. I think that if they were going to teach you all of this stuff, dodging and moving out of the way of that crap, and it's kind of teaching you the telegraph system, how to interact with quest objects. I mean, at a basic level, that's what it's doing. And I'm pretty sure that's what the developers intended for it to do. But what they didn't intend for it to do was feel, a little fractured and a little discombobulated with the rest of the game. Because you do this quest stuff, you get a little taste of the combat, and you're like, oh, that was awesome, I want more combat. But you only have to kill like 3 of those things. And then you go on a huge excursion of just clicking on more crap. In the Exile Zone, you get that little taste of combat, and then it gives you more. You have a small, time of clicking on things, but it feels like it goes a lot shorter than this does, because you have like a whole other extra area here of clicking. It's more clicking, it's not as fun. But basically, for this quest, you walk around the room, you click on each of these aspects, you choose one, it gives you a stupid little buff that actually doesn't mean anything, so you can click on any one of them that you want. You go talk back to the person in the middle of the room, and then you go talk to the Emperor, and then you move on. This is also where you pick up your path quest in this area as well. But once you move on, then you have a whole museum that you have to go to, and you have to click on more things there. I think if there were more combat in between here and there, this starting zone would feel a lot better. But everybody in our group of players that have played through this, they all agree that this is the weakest part of the game, because it's not a good representation of what the game actually is. The game isn't this. There isn't so much clicking and going and retrieving quest objectives and stuff. There's a lot more combat in the actual game, and you realize that once you get out of this area. It's actually way more fun once you do as well, because you get a taste of what the actual game is, and I'm curious why they decided to go with this route of kind of a not fun tutorial zone. It's completely counterintuitive to the rest of the game, because the rest of the game wants you to have as much fun as possible, and they're giving you a ton of combat and challenges and double kills and multi-kills and whatever. But this isn't this, this is, you're running around, you're clicking on things in a museum, and the first time you do it, it's really hard to find where the heck this stuff is, so assume this is a guide, because this is where this stuff is in the museum, so you can actually see it. So when you go through it your first time, you actually get a good idea from this video of, where to go. So you can just blast through this area as quickly as possible and get to the real game. Get to the fun parts, the awesome parts. Like, you see I have to click on those groupies, and I have to go find these cameras, but there's other things around here that are lore related that you have to go click on. It's too much. It's way too much. They needed it way more simple, way more just straightforward, with you do some stupid things, you do some combat, and then you get out of this and you get to start your main zone. I think that would have been a lot better. But coming up here, once we get out of this zone, which we're about to do, it does get a lot better. And the reason it does is because it goes into this cool training facility, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, because there's some subtle things here that people don't necessarily realize. But also, as I mentioned, beta is beta. This area is not optimized at all, so you're going to see some low frame rates here. When I first played through it a few weeks ago, actually more than that, it was like 10 frames per second. During this, it was about 20, so it got a little better, but it's still not the best. Now, these are little training combat zones, so you go into each one of them, and each one of them have a theme. So this is the Granok area. And you'll see by doing this how racist the Exiles actually are, or the Dominion rather actually is. It's really funny too, because you have the Granok, and they're working on their own little stuff, and you don't catch the subtleties here, but you definitely catch them in the next couple areas. So with this one, you just go kill a few people, then you go plant a bomb. It's pretty simple. But once you get into the next zone, you see it. You see where they're going. This one, it's making fun of the Granok a little bit, but it's, like I said, super subtle. But once you move over to this other one, it's a graveyard, right? And what they are doing in this spot is, you can even see it in the names of the enemies themselves, but they're they're basically calling the Mordesh, because the last one was the Granok, this one's the Mordesh. They're calling the Mordesh space zombies, is what they're doing, because they're coming out of graves. You know, they're in a graveyard, in a dark, grim, gothic graveyard, and the Mordesh are popping out of the graves as you're doing it. Obviously, they're holograms, so it's set up this way as a training facility to kind of, you know, I guess set your mindset that you hate this faction of the Exiles, and it does a very good job of it. It's subtle, but it's there. Once you notice it, you will never unnotice it. So you have the space zombies, and then it moves over to the humans. Right now, the Cassians are the version of humans on the Dominion, and they believe themselves high and mighty. Well, this one, the Exiles version of the humans are very redneck. So you have like these shanty houses, and you have to go boot them out of these, you know, little like redneck houses and evict them from them, and then you destroy them with all that. And once again, you see it in the actual enemy names that the Dominion believes the Exile humans to be rednecks, which is really funny. And you see that in all the trailers for the game too. They I guess depict that as well. And then the last one you have is the Orin, which you come in and they're tree huggers is what they're called. You know, it's really funny when you notice it. But you burn down their trees. There's like, you know, that stag with a rainbow running around. They're calling them tree huggers, and you get to burn down their trees and then kill the people. It's a basic training area to teach you that the Exiles are the enemy and to go kill the Exiles. It's a recombobulation camp, I guess is the best way to put it, because you wouldn't call it like a, you know, I guess a training camp in order to, you know, go kill these guys, because it's a little funnier than that. They're putting it in a lighthearted way as opposed to a super racist way, even though that's what it is, and it doesn't matter much. Either way, you get to this area, you go kill this big, you know, Granok guy. That's kind of the big boss here, and then you move on to the next spot where you're applauded for your work against the Exile training area, and then you get to move on and go down to the actual planets. With that being said, the Exile starting area, as I said earlier, is a lot better. It's a lot more fun, and we'll take a look at that shortly. We do want to go through the other two zones that we get to split off here, because the game does split into two zones. You have this, which is the tutorial area, which is what I call it, and then you have two radically different zones that you get to choose from. So one has like a London-y rain vibe to it, and the other one is kind of like Barrens in Warcraft, and both of them are very unique and very different, and they're really cool. So we're gonna take a look at those, and once you get to those two zones, after you've finished it, you go into another zone that is related to that one that you chose. So if you do the London-y rainy one, then you get to do one that is also kind of in that same biome style. And after that, so after you finish those 4 zones, you know, obviously you're only doing 2 of them, but after you've done one of the 2 sets, then you converge in on the main city, and then that kind of converges all the quests back together. So you got to make sure you're going to the right one with your friends before you choose it, otherwise you'll get split up. But with that being said, that wraps it up for this tutorial zone. We'll start in the next 2 zones on the next couple videos, and we shall see you guys next time.
Shuttle X1, you have been granted for a priority launch to... Is that right? Levian Bay? Thought that territory was still off limits. Oh, I see. Ladies Inn is involved. Very good then. Glory to the Dominion.